Okay, we are going to do Blue Sort 17, and we're going to be continuing on with this little 3-lesson series we've been doing on adding ION. So we've been adding ION, IAN, we've been adding ION where we've had to change the base word, we've been adding ION where we need to drop a D and add it as SION, etc, etc. So we've been looking at lots. I'm kind of getting a little bit trickier. So first week was really straightforward, then we did some trickier ones, and now we're looking at some kind of unusual versions of adding ION. So basically we're looking at adding ation, we're looking at adding cation, and we're looking at adding ischen. Okay, so this is all part of the ION family, but these are some slightly different modifications of the ION family. And when I show you some base words and then add this, you'll be like, oh yeah, I've heard that word before. Even though you might be looking at these thinking, what on earth is that? What I might do is actually give you some, let's look at 4 of the words that are in your word sort, and we'll kind of look at, because there's going to be 4 columns in your word sort. So let's look at 4 different words that show you the 4 different things you need to do. Okay, so we've got, and I'll do the base word. Okay, so the base word is inform, and then we've got organize, and we've got apply, and we've got add. Okay, so these are going to be your 4 columns in your, well, 1 word from each of the columns in your word sort. So you can take notes on this now. You can write those 4 words down, and I'll talk about what we're going to do with each type of word. Okay, so if we want to turn this into an ION word, inform, we don't say informant. That's just not a word. Hopefully you might know without me even saying it, but I'm sure you'll recognize this word if I show you. Information. So you can see here, I'm adding ation. So we can say about this one, add ation with no change if word ends in consonant. Okay, so if you have a word inform and you want to make it information, then if the base word ends in a consonant, you just add ation. So that's kind of rule 1. Let's just spread these out a bit more. Okay. Organize. Now, I want to add ation to this word too, but what am I going to have to do to that word to make it look right? Hopefully, as we often have to do in words, I have to drop the E. So often with words that end in E and you have to add an ending that begins with a vowel, you have to drop the E. So suddenly that looks correct now, doesn't it? Hopefully you think that looks correct. Organisation. So drop E before adding ation. Okay, so these are our 2 types of ation words. One we do no change, one we have to drop the E. So that's you're going to have 1 column of words where you're doing that to it, 1 column of words where you're having to think about dropping the E. Okay, but we also wanted to talk about adding cation. So let's look at a word like apply. Applytion application. They're all sounding a bit weird, aren't they? Now, apply, we actually turn into a word. We drop the Y, and we add, and then we put an I in its place. So the Y goes away and an I comes to stay. And then we add application. So apply turns into application. That's a really tricky transition. But the good news is, once you've learnt that pattern for one Y word, it's the same for all of the words. And again, I've been really hammering on about this. But application, that's a really tricky word. But if you know the base word is apply, and you know the rule, change the Y to an I and add cation, suddenly you become a boss speller because you understand that rule is actually quite simple. Even though the word, if you were just pulling that off the top of your head, would probably be pretty tricky to get that word completely correct. So application. So words that end in Y, we lose the Y and put an I. Then add cation. Okay, so there'll be a few examples of words that end in Y. Y goes away, I comes back, and we add cation. Pretty straightforward, really, once you understand what you're doing. And then we've got add. We've got a few words like this. It's not so much a rule with these words. We just add ation. Some words require ation. Okay, and I'll just leave it up to you to work out the words that we're going to be looking at. There is only 3 words in this category. So we've got chunk of words here, chunk of words here, chunk of words here, and just 3 words here. Okay, so let's quickly, so that's what I'd like you to take in your notes section. So you can pause the video if you need to write that down. And then we're going to do a word sort. Okay. So we've got, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to say ation. And I'm going to say no change. And I'm going to say e-drop. Okay, so these are 2 separate columns. I just want to note that you're adding ation to both. It's just one's no change and one's an e-drop. Then there is a third column, where we're adding cation. And then we've got our 4th column, which is adding ation. This is the short one though. Okay, so let's add our words. So we have inform, base word, ation. Consider, ation. You have shown consideration. Present. Get up and present your work. That student did a presentation. Okay, so remember we're turning a verb into a noun. Relax, ation. Tempt. Don't tempt me. Oh, I've fallen into temptation. So temptation is a pretty tricky word. Once you understand the base and the ending, it becomes really straightforward. Transport. I'd like to transport a package. I will put it into transportation. In fact, I'm going to rewrite that word, butt it up to the left a bit, because it's going to get in the way of this column. So that's a really long word. Transportation. And expect. Expect. I expect you will do well. I have an expectation that you will do well. So one's a verb, one's a noun. Okay, so we've got 7 words in our adding ation with no change to the base word. So we could just knock off the ation and we've got our base words unchanged. These ones are our e-drop. I'll do these in a different colour. Okay, so organize, or organize. I'm going to drop my E and add ation. I've got imagine. I'm just going to stop short of putting that E there and add ation. Reserve. Normally have an E there, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to put ation. The word reserve, and then we turn it into reservation. We don't have such a reservation. Slightly different pronunciation, but you can still tell what the base word is. Starve. Whoop. Starve. That's got an E there, but I don't put it in because I want to put ation. So I've got starvation. Quote. A quote. That's the word. Couldn't resist writing the E just to show you the base word. Quote. You probably know how to spell quote. But did you know how to spell quotation? Well, now you do. See? Easy. Exam. Oh, sorry. The base word is examine. To examine. I really wanted to examine the specimen. It underwent an examination. And then memorize. Whoop. Memorize. And then I don't put the E. And I put ation. Here we go. Memorization. So we also have 7 words in that column. I'm going to have to move these across, aren't I? Okay. So we've got cation now. Okay. So remember, these are our Y words. These are our base words that end in Y. So what I'm actually going to do, go back to purple, I'm actually going to write the base. Don't write these base words down because they're actually, you're writing the changed ones down. But I'm going to write them down just so you can see because I've got a whiteboard marker. You don't. So don't write these down yet. So I'm going to write apply. I'm going to write identify, justify, purify, beautify, gratify, and notify. Notify. Okay, so there are base words. So do you remember what we have to do with the Y? The Y goes away and an I comes to stay, and then we add cation. So this is a kind of weird one. It's not sort of intuitive. You wouldn't think, oh, of course, that's exactly what I should do with that word. But once you learn the rule, you can see how many words you can do this to. Really complicated. Application's a really tricky word. Identification, that's a really tricky word. But you probably know how to spell identify. So if you know this rule, the Y goes away, I comes back, and you add cation, suddenly you're spelling identification beautifully and looking like you're an absolute top-notch speller. Y goes away, I comes back, cation. Okay? That's why we go to all the trouble of teaching you these rules, because actually it helps you spell really complicated words very easily. Purify, purification, beautification, gratification, so we can see notification. Okay, so brilliant. Okay, and our last 3 words. Now, I'm not going to put it there because I've got a little glary spot. I might be able to fit it just up the top or squeeze it in. I think the glare's about here. So we've got ischen, and I've got add ischen, got part ischen, and ed ischen. And they're just words that you need to learn. Okay, they're not obbles, they follow a rule, but they're not quite as, you wouldn't necessarily see the word ed and go, oh, I know, I have to add addition. Really, addition is its kind of own word. Okay, so I think that is all for this week. plenty of practice to be done on these words, but hopefully once you've learnt the no change, E drop rule with ation, and then the Y goes away, I comes back, and add cation rule, you should be able to spell all these words perfectly. Okay, have fun practicing. Bye.